Hey, welcome back to Pop Culture Graveyard. I am your host, Hollis, and today I'm going to talk about the Replacements. They're one of my all-time favorite bands. I love so many of their songs. No deep dive this week. The deep dives are killing me. They take a little chunk of me every week. Not this week. No more deep dives. I'm just going to tell you my favorite Replacement songs on every album. So what follows is completely extemporaneous, totally off the top of my head, totally improvised. Gut reactions about my favorite Replacements songs. Are you ready? If you don't know the Replacements, they were this little Minneapolis band who operated from 1979 until 1990. The Replacements consist of Paul Westerberg on guitar and vocals, Tommy Stinson on bass, Bob Stinson on lead guitar, and Chris Mars on drums. Musically, the band's songs sound like a hybrid between Bruce Springsteen and Johnny Thunders and the Heartbreakers. Replacements were also called the Mats, which was short for the Placemats, which was a charming little nickname given to the band by some of their female fans. So if you hear me refer to the Replacements as the Mats sometimes, I'm not having a seizure. Released in August of 1981, Sorry Ma, Forgot to Take Out the Trash, their debut album. One of my favorite songs off this kicks off the album, Taking a Ride. Perfect lead-off track. And from the second the song kicks off, a few things are obvious. Paul Westerberg has a great rock and roll voice, and little Tommy Stinson can play his ass off on bass. He plays with a melodicism and a fury far beyond his years. I believe he was 3 years old when they recorded this. Ballparking. So he's clearly a natural on bass. Westerberg's lyrics are all the right kinds of juvenile. It's one of my favorite rockers off this. This song totally proves that they are the tightest, sloppy band ever. Another song I love off this, Johnny's Gonna Die. All due respect to Murder City Devils, but Johnny's Gonna Die is the best song written about Johnny Thunders. Paul also wrote the song when Johnny was still alive. So it takes a lot of balls to presage a legend's death accurately. Johnny would hang on for another 10 years or so, but he would of course die, as Paul and most of the world predicted. But to come out and say it, and not to be judgy about it, we don't know how he feels one way or another about it. He's just saying. Paul was inspired to write the song after seeing Johnny perform live with the band Gang War when they played Minneapolis in 1980. It's the first indication on the album that there's more depth to this band, musically and songwriting wise, than they have shown so far. There's one more song on here that I feel totally encapsulates Paul's plain-spoken lyrical genius, and that's Trouble. The lyrics go, I'm in trouble, I gotta hide, I better run, I'll try suicide, no, that ain't no fun, you won't ever let me go, you're in love, and I'm in trouble. Those are great fucking lyrics. That's one of the geniuses of Paul Westerberg's writing. He often shows different perspectives at once. He's like Kafka. Like Kafka? Short stories Kafka. Yeah, that's better, dude. It's a real rocker of an album, raunchy from their faux hardcore days. It's a great album, but they would only get better from here. In April of 1983, the band released Hootenanny. There is a lot of humor on this album. It's their most fun album, but there are a few classic Replacement songs on here. My favorite song on this album is Color Me Impressed. It's got great lyrics. It alternates between poppy melodicism and outright aggression. Color Me Impressed would have easily fit on one of their later albums. It walks the line between college rock anthem and snarling punk toss-off. It's also a really good example of the band as a cohesive unit firing on all cylinders. They're really tight at this point. They speed up, they slow down, they stop on a dime. It's an excellent track. Another song on here, Willpower. I love Willpower. Willpower is a unique track for the Replacements. If you're a Kinks fan, it's their Wicked Annabella. It's got a sinister vibe to it that I love. It's a moody little track that rides Tommy's walking bass line and Paul's echo-drenched lyrics to a dark corner of post-punk where the Mats seldom tread. Nothing on side one, or in the Mats' entire career so far, can prepare you for the side two opener Within Your Reach. You may know the song for its use in the film Say Anything. It's a Paul Westerberg solo show from start to finish. He plays all the instruments himself, and it's a huge leap forward for him as a songwriter. It's probably the best song on the album, and there's a sparseness to that track that Paul would revisit in later songwriting. While there aren't many classic songs on Hootenanny, It is a somewhat underappreciated album that I think is due for a reassessment. In October of 1984, the Mats release, Let It Be. Only an album this good could get away with a title like Let It Be. This is the album that got me into the Replacements. There are a lot of great songs on here. I'm going to focus on just a few, but anyone who is Replacements curious, I implore you to start with this album, Let It Be. If you start with later albums, I don't know that you'll appreciate this one as much. Everything that they do on later albums begins here. This album kicks off with their best song to date, I Will Dare. I Will Dare has the most infectious bass line I've ever heard in my life. It makes a great bass line like Under Pressure feel lazy by comparison. Jangly guitars, rock solid drumming, bouncy bass, and a fantastic lead vocal from Paul. From the opening lyrics, how young are you? How old am I? Let's count the rings around my eyes. You know you're in for a lyrical treat. I Will Dare also features guitar work courtesy of Peter Buck, lead guitarist from REM. I Will Dare is the song I would play for anybody to show them who the Replacements are and what they're about. I Will Dare is followed by Favorite Thing. Talk about a 1-2 punch. You know I love a good 1-2 punch when it comes to albums. Favorite Thing is brilliant. It's one of Paul Westerberg's typically sarcastic love songs. You're my favorite thing, once in a while. Favorite Thing is also a song that was written by the entire band together. If a camel is a horse created by committee, then this song is a pack of unfiltered camels. 'Cause it's smoking. The song Androgynous is the hidden gem on this album. It's a quiet piano track with sweet, unguarded lyrics from Paul. The forward-thinking lyrics state, now something meets boy and something meets girl. They both look the same. They're overjoyed in this world. Same hair revolution, unisex evolution. Tomorrow, who's gonna fuss? Fucking A, Paul. Well, it's tomorrow, and guess what? Not only are we not giving a fuss, but we're fighting for the rights of people to be whatever the fuck they want to be. So when I said forward thinking, I was not joking. Pretty prescient track for 1984, wouldn't you say? The rest of the album is good as well, but I had to just tell you my favorite things once in a while. In September of 1985, the band released Tim. After 3 albums on the Twin Tone label, this was their major label debut for Sire, and it was produced by Tommy Ramone, which explains the big step up in sound production-wise. This album is a killer. Matt's albums always have great sequencing, and this is no different. It opens with a killer track, Hold My Life, which is pretty uplifting for such a bleak track. Or is it bleak music for uplifting lyrics? I can't tell. It details the pitfalls of fame with the refrain, hold my life because I just may lose it. Time for decisions to be made. Crack up in the sun or lose it in the shade. The songwriting just got better and better with this band. There's a great drum sound on this track and on this album as a whole. Thank you, Tommy Ramone. The song Kiss Me on the Bus is fantastic. It is a dose of bright, shiny pop perfection that even their idol's big star would be envious of. It's one of the best songs on Tim. Another favorite is Waitress in the Sky, very rudely poking fun at airline stewardesses, aka waitresses in the sky. It is a very rude song, but it is so finely crafted. The lyrics state, sanitation expert and a maintenance engineer, garbage man, a janitor, and you, my dear. A real union flight attendant, my oh my. You ain't nothing but a waitress in the sky. People might think Paul meant the song in a mean way, but he didn't. Paul's sister, Julie, was a flight attendant for Delta for 40 years. And Julie would tell Paul all of these terrible stories about angry customers who would say mean things to her or act with this sense of entitlement. And so he wrote the song from the point of view of like the worst case scenario of this guy. It's happy, it's sad, it's brilliant. The song Bastards of Young is possibly their most iconic song. The lyrics perfectly encapsulate the band's lovable loser ethos. We are the sons of no one, bastards of young. The early lyrics are always quoted, but there's a section of the song I love that really points to the fact that Westerberg was writing on a different level than a lot of his peers. The lyrics state, the ones love us best are the ones we'll lay to rest and visit their graves on holidays at best. The ones love us least are the ones we're dying to please. If it's any consolation, I don't begin to understand them. What? Game over, man. It's one of their all-time best songs. The song Left of the Dial is another beautiful song. Left of the Dial pays tribute to college radio stations, which of course were some of the first radio stations to fully embrace the replacements, and other groups like REM and Husker Du, who were out there doing something new. College radio was the lifeblood of the alt music scene. The album closer, Here Comes a Regular, oh my god. In some bizarro alternative universe, this is the theme song to Cheers. Here Comes a Regular is a heartbreaking closer to this album. I mentioned Big Star earlier. Here Comes a Regular is as close as the Mats get to that Big Star vibe. Here's a line for you. You're like a picture on the fridge that's never stocked with food. Come on, dog. That's how you close an album. By the time Tim ends, if you're not singing the lines, Here Comes a Regular, I don't know what to do with you. Tim is brilliant. He's a good guy right here. This is also their last album with Bob Stinson. Rest in peace, Bob. He didn't die, they fired him. But he died later. So, rest in peace. In April of 1987, the band released Pleased to Meet Me. This design is, of course, a play on the famous G.I. Blues by Elvis album cover. The Replacements, of course, selling out to the big, ugly corporate rock executive. Should have really been the cover for Tim, right? What's that about? This was taped in Ardent Studios in Memphis, where their beloved Big Star used to record. The producer is Jim Dickinson, who recorded the Big Star third album. Jim Dickinson, by the way, the producer, he also plays the piano on Wild Horses by the Rolling Stones. That's him on those keys. So they had a monster producer in a great studio, and they produced their most cohesive album yet, IOU, which leads off this album. May be my favorite side one, track one, ever. Not as a song, but as an opener. It instantly knocks the wax out of your ears and grabs your attention. And the lyrics, I want it in writing. I owe you nothing. I don't know, you think it's about the music biz? Maybe? It's a rocking track with heavy guitars. They often open concerts with it because it's the ultimate get the fuck out of your seat track. IOU is a fucking heater. It's a barn burner. It's a Hollis heat seeker. Trademark pending. The song Alex Chilton, I feel like I could do an entire episode just on the track Alex Chilton. Alex Chilton, of course, from the band Big Star, but before that he was the lead singer in the Box Tops. He recorded the track The Letter, and it sounded like he chain smoked from the time he was a fetus. If anyone deserved a song written about them, it's Alex Chilton. I'm in love. What's that song? I'm in love with that song. He could have been talking about The Letter. He could have been talking about September Girls. He could have been talking about 13. Any song in the Chilton vocabulary. It features the line, I never travel far without a little Big Star. Yeah, it means he brings a little bit of their music with him everywhere he goes. But the songcraft to use the word little in front of the word big, he's Westerberg, man. You just got Westerberged. Trademark. It also name checks Venus, Mars, Memphis, and St. Mark's Place. All your cooler destinations. Cerebral rape and pillage in the village of his choice. Invisible man who can sing in a visible voice. Tell you what, you write better lyrics. I'm waiting. The song I Don't Know is a really funny, cool rocker. It's the only song I can think of that's equal parts enthusiasm and apathy at the same time. It's got a real ragged charm to it, and it's got some pretty killer sax. A little fun fact, the saxophone on I Don't Know was played by teenage Steve Douglas, who's a studio man who's played with Phil Spector. He played on Pet Sounds. He plays sax on Rock and Roll Radio by the Ramones. Killer pedigree. The song The Ledge is the best suicide song since Can't Stand Losing You, or since Don't Try Suicide. There are some cool suicide songs. I'm not going to quote from the song because all the lyrics are genius and I want you to look them up. The song Skyway is a great song. It is Paul Westerberg's Here Comes the Sun. It is a slow, sweet song with beautiful imagery about a pedestrian topic, both figuratively and literally, a skyway. A lot of times Paul's writing about something and it's really about something else, but Skyway is really just about a skyway. As Sigmund Freud once said, sometimes a penis is just a penis. What? I'm not a psychologist. Don't quote me. Finally, the track Can't Hardly Wait is another stellar track off this album. It was originally written for and recorded for Tim. Bob Stinson kicks ass on guitar on that song. So go up to the search bar, type in Replacements, Can't Hardly Wait, Tim version, and check that out. And then come back. You gotta come back, or else you can't search. It was re-recorded here, and they turned the lead guitar line into a horn part, which is played on saxophone here. It's a great album closer. It was the first single off the album. It didn't do well. Just for a little perspective, Can't Hardly Wait was released for a single at a time when the charts consisted of Talk Dirty to Me by Poison, I Just Died in Your Arms Tonight by Cutting Crew, and I Knew You Were Waiting for Me by Aretha Franklin and George Michael. So who didn't want a loud, aggressive rock band that gets drunk and sloppy? Another fun fact, Alex Chilton plays guitar on Can't Hardly Wait. Alex Chilton didn't play on Alex Chilton. That would be too meta, but he plays on Can't Hardly Wait. So another great song on a killer album. In February of 1989, the band released Don't Tell a Soul. This album would finally see Bob Stinson replaced by guitarist Slim Dunlop. It kicks off with Talent Show, another great opening track. I remember seeing them perform it live on the International Rock Awards, and it was the perfect venue for them. And this song, which lyrically is a very what the hell are we doing here kind of song. More wonderful imagery from Paul over this circular guitar pattern. Just a wonderful way to start this album. The track Anywhere's Better Than Here, it brings back for a moment the Replacements of old. It opens with the lyrics, press your luck up against his body. You got Westerberg again. It's a stomping, snarling beast of a track that might be the hidden gem on this album. The Mats know that side 2, track 1 is supposed to kick ass, and it does. In this song, you can also hear the blueprint for the Goo Goo Dolls' entire career. And that ain't a bad thing. I like the Goo. Got Goo. Asking Me Lies is another great little song. It's a little heavy on the 80s production, but the touches work and add to the charm of the song. My favorite line? Well, the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting drunk. Yeah, I'll Be You is the big hit off the album, and rightly so. It was the band's first and only Hot 100 single, and they did it the right way. They did not sell out, because it was a hit on their own terms. All the usual Mats ingredients are in place. Clever wordplay, sweet melodies, and ragged vocals. Great, great track. In September of 1990, the band released All Shook Down. The opening track, Merry Go Round, it's one of Paul's best vocal performances. There's really interesting guitar work on this track too. The guitars almost seem plugged right into the soundboard, with the volume and the ragged riffing. Yet at the same time, there's something that Slim Dunlop is doing on guitar that seems almost subliminal. One Wink at a Time has some of Paul's best lines, which is saying something. It features brilliantly understated use of saxophone. The sax is played by Steve Berlin, who was in Los Lobos and the Blasters for a while. It's a standout track, and it would have really fit in well on Pleased to Meet Me. The song Nobody has delicious lyrics about a bride who's just faking it. The lyrics go, heartaches on your wedding day, double takes when they look my way, knees quake, there ain't a shotgun in the place. You like the frosting, you just bought the cake. Your eyes can't fake, you're in love with nobody, and I won't tell nobody. And the outro features a killer guitar solo. The guitar sound on this album in general is gnarly, which is shocking for their last album. This was originally supposed to be a Paul Westerberg solo album, and at the 11th hour, his managers talked him into making it a Replacements album, which explains a lot of the studio guests on this album. But at moments, the band muster that cohesive Replacements sound, and the results are glorious. The track Sadly Beautiful, which by the way could be an alternate title for this album, slows things down for a much appreciated breather, and when that viola comes in, tears. I'm not crying, you're crying. By the way, that's living legend John Cale playing the viola. The song My Little Problem is straight up old school Replacements. It's a duet with Jeanette Napolitano from Concrete Blonde, and it's a standout track with rocking guitars and inspired lyrics. And it's one of those rare moments on this album that has that live show energy. So the tracks on this album were a respectable end to their career. And if you haven't heard this album, it's probably a lot better than you think it is. That's it for this week on Pop Culture Graveyard. If you enjoyed this week's episode, please hit the subscribe button. And I will see you next week with a lot more cool stuff.